welcome back to another lesson. We are starting a brand new unit right now, Unit 5, Lesson 1. I have to check that again as well, right? But we're moving into creating a podcast as well as looking at creating your demo, okay? In this lesson specifically, well, let me just introduce myself once again. I'm Chris Jordan, and welcome to Boston Media House's radio short course lessons. Okay, my name's Chris, and I will be with you for the next hour or so, whatever. All right, enough tomfoolery. So in this lesson, we are going to be talking about podcasting in specific and just the basics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide on how to start a podcast, what thoughts you need to have and where they need to go where, like how to choose a name, if you want to choose a co-host, how to choose a topic, or how to choose, let's say, a niche, and kind of get you started. The main thing, so I really like, and I can talk about podcasts and talk about radio forever and ever. We don't want that till amen, right? But I want to say, with the podcasting space specifically, it is, again, not a buzzword anymore. This has been around for so long. I've mentioned to you before that I started my first podcast in 2010, and it's not because I was the first in the world to do it. Like, podcasting was already prevalent around the world, not as close as it is in the 2020s right now. I did mention a little bit of a super fact there for you with over 1.5 million unique podcasts that are currently active at any one time in the world. Shows you that the podcasting space is now, and now if we're going to have to just officially brand it as official, it is here to stay, and it is being around and put in its work to be where it is as a separate medium that isn't linked to radio, that isn't linked to TV, that isn't linked to print or digital or whatever it may be, right? So just like any medium, it is added value when you do combine. So for example, we do have radio and a radio station that is doing shows, and they've got presenters, and they've got content, they've got journalists, whatever it may be. But now we must use podcasting, not as what you might have heard before on a number of stations that do still load it up onto their sites and whatever, is that they will now grab something that has happened on there. They'll put a top and tail to it. In other words, they'll put like a beginner jingle and an end jingle to it, and they will just cut it and post it up, like, for example, like an interview, and just call that a podcast. No, that is not a podcast. A podcast is a unique, original, added value idea that it exists beyond another platform's execution or its existence. In other words, like we could be cutting that. That has been done for decades. I'm saying as long as we've been able to edit sound, upload it, let's say, to the net, and people have been able to play it back in whatever, like players or whatever embedded coded platforms they have, whatever it may be, right? Like that's been happening forever. So the podcasting space and a podcast on itself must be original content that is not available somewhere else or has been made available to the public in any other way before, right? Okay, so as long as your headspace is there, we can start moving into this. When I do say this, so when we get into podcasting space, we have to really understand that we mustn't be, it is a little bit taunting, it is a little bit intimidating to know that so many people out there are conducting their own podcast, producing their own podcasts. A lot of professional ones, but there are a lot of unprofessional ones in terms of, let's say, how it's edited, how it's produced, what they speak about. That just because they're all over 1.5 doesn't mean that any of that is close to a number that are good or great podcasts that you can actually listen to, right? So when you want to come in and you want to try this, try it like you would do any other medium, and 10 to 1, you're probably not going to do so great in the beginning, just like you would do on any other medium or in any other medium. Let's say when you are first introduced to a social platform, like you weren't like the best, I don't know, Instagram poster. You didn't create the greatest content. You didn't know what to post or what to take photos of. You're probably like all of us at one point who took a picture of a coffee that on like the phone was, I don't know, there was a little shape of a flower or a leaf or I don't know, whatever it is. like everyone did that. We all have that unashamed past. Anyway, like there is that kind of bland period, but the thing is that you have to go through it so that you can get better like anything else, right? But if you use the guidelines and just make sure that you don't go in blindly and just start talking about random stuff and start, like I say, your editing is poor and you include stuff that is irrelevant or whatever it may be, right? Then you are putting yourself in a better spot amongst that 1.5 million, at least in the better 50% and upwards, right? Okay, so please remember that. Let's go into the slides. I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to talk too much before getting into the content. I will again reference the slides and I will elaborate when I need to. Okay, first of all is to choose a topic, right? Okay, so when you choose a topic and you choose a okay, so there's various types of ways that you can approach a podcast, right? You can again do it like I've advised you to do. It's recommended. I find it very comfortable to do. In other words, I can manage it. It's manageable. Production is great on that. You can also prep and plan in advance is when to build a series. So, for example, like I say, we watch TV series in seasons, should I say, like 8 to 9 episodes, maybe sometimes 6, sometimes 12, sometimes 13, 24, I don't know, 26, right? You would, let's say, also prepare a season, right? Okay, of your series that you want to, let's say, create. Now, that is manageable because then I can also start looking at what I want to talk about, especially if it's my first podcast that I want to do. Like, the thing is that you're going to be inundated with a number of very generic stuff. So what do I want to talk about? Mental health. Or what do I want to talk about? Women empowerment. What do I want to talk about? Let's say how to raise kids. Or what do I want to talk about? Like male trauma or male psychology. What would I like to talk about? How to save money, like a finance or whatever it is, like a financial show. There's a lot of umbrellas and they're really massive. And the thing is that with anything in entertainment, but particularly so in podcasting, you have to go from a niche to a niche to a niche to a niche to actually draw in a little bit of interest. Please note that with an audience for a podcast, you think about how you, let's say, digest, or I'm saying podcasts within your experience of listening to them and enjoying them, right? You will not be dedicated to a podcast for indefinitely, right? So then you say to me, but there's MacG and there's people like I say, like Joe Rogan and stuff like that. Those are shows, okay? So they are not particularly podcasts. They are normally vodcasts, and they are actually shows that are streamed. Yes, we can classify them as podcasts or under the podcasting realm because they are original content at the end of the day. But where's the difference between that and actually online radio, which, yes, could be, the definition of online radio is that we have an entire, obviously, schedule with different shows that is obviously dedicated to a specific segment as well. But streaming, live, like I say, live broadcast, which is what, let's say, MacG will do, or what Joe Rogan does, or what Howard Stern does, that is not exactly a podcast, right? So I want to draw you right back into thinking about, like I say, that massive, massive, massive scale of what it is that I can actually choose to speak about, and then bring it down to the niche, to niche, to niche, right back down to the audience, that one person that you really want. Always aim for that one person. It's a general rule in radio. Again, my first boss taught it to me. The best lessons are always taught first, right? So like I said, if you can get one listener at a time, you'll have them for life, right? Because if for example, like a show of yours, they dedicated to it, they're not going to switch off. They're not going to not come back the next day or the next week that you're on. They're going to come back. They enjoyed it. You gave them what they wanted. They're a loyal listener, right? And exactly with a podcaster, or let's say someone that's going to now listen to one episode, first episode 1, pilot, whatever it is, of your now premium podcast series that you're doing. If you get them to enjoy it, they will go right to the next one. one thing I must talk about consumption and the way that people also treat podcasts in terms of like how do we listen to podcasts. So there's been different trends around the years. We used to have an average of, let's say, like a good podcast was about 27 to 34 minutes, around about there. When it's 27 to 34 minutes, we would have the behavior of a listener come in and give the podcast 1 to 7 minutes to convince them to continue listening to the podcast, right? 1 to 7 minutes, because like the tolerance of it is not like on radio. Like on radio, we are very, very picky as well, but in a different way, because we understand the nature of a podcast. Just like you would watch, let's say, the first episode of a new series that you've never watched before, you'll give them the first, let's say, 1 to 7 minutes or so, maybe even the full episode, because obviously television is a little bit different. But in podcasting, we'll be like, okay, cool, I want to listen to this, right? I might listen up to, let's say, minute 15, minute 16. I might put it on pause, might go do some work, might go cook, I might go have a shower, and I'll come back and I'll listen to the rest of it then, right? So with that average, I'm saying to you, now it's actually in the like I say, the latest statistics for podcasting, it was saying or has been said to say that the average now episode length should be between 15 and 17 minutes, because, and they're not going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. Right now, people don't have the energy or capacity or commitment to want to listen to an hour podcast or a 48-minute podcast or whatever it is. Because we do also have, and I mean, I'm going to carry on this a little bit, but we have also audiobooks, right, which are a completely different element as well. And an audiobook, like I'm going to listen to, carry on for about 7 to 8 hours, an audiobook. If it's a self-help book, it's a fictional book, it doesn't really matter, maybe 14 hours, and so I'm prepared for that type of thing. It doesn't matter. So sidebar, right? So we don't want audiobooks, like to be listening to that. These days, right now, we want actually something quite short, not too short. Otherwise, we might as well listen to radio. Otherwise, we might as well watch TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever it is. Want something in the audio space right now. Between 15 and 17 minutes is about a good average. Please don't take that as now the biblical final call on how your length should be, because whatever year you're watching this in, like, it's going to change, and you must obviously keep up with the trends and read up on the trends and know that for yourself as you move along. Right? Okay. Right. So just a little bit of like a little bit of background. For example, when I'm choosing your topic, there's a specific podcast that's referred to here. We're going to use it as an example. It's called the Hiking 14ers, right? And I'll explain the concept of the Hiking 14ers and how they decided to use this particular 14ers word or and paraphrase that into how they would execute certain episodes, or find out like what they would construct as ideas for certain episodes using the 14 within that name, right? Okay, but it is an outdoors. It's the genre is outdoors. We do have outdoors things like, for example, single woman go fishing, right? And that would be something really interesting. So, for example, and they go fly fishing. Why not? Let's just add more uniqueness to that, right? So, let's say I decide on choosing a topic. I want to now do fly fishing with single woman. It's going to be a little bit about the technique and obviously the experience of fly fishing, but what I want actually is I want single woman to get together with performing what is, I don't know, generally viewed as a male sport or recreation, which is fly fishing, and I want them to kind of get emotionally connected to that process of, maybe, you understand, like life, you know what I'm saying to you? I'm putting obviously my little bait there, I'm like throwing out I don't know what that thing is called, but I know that it's got a hook at the end there, and I've got my reel, but I don't know what the string is called, but yeah, right? And I can go and I can take different elements of fly fishing, right, for my 6 episodes, for example, right, and different techniques and so on, and I can mirror that into like the difficulties or the obstacles or the narratives of single woman's life. And the greatest conversations happen around a campfire, right? So we can have these like six very different, diverse single women, divorced, young, old, whatever it may be, different races, different religions, doesn't really matter. Like a CEO versus, like a cashier at a bank or whatever it is, a teller, should I say, at a bank, whatever it may be, right? And now these girls get into it, right? And we can really create something really cool. Make it more niche, make it really interesting, and I'm going to tell you something, I will have listeners for that, because you might say, oh, that sounds super boring, but I'm telling you what, there are if we take, let's say, the consumption of social media, let's say 2 billion people on average are my potential listeners or potential, I could draw from that market there because they're on the digital space. There'll be enough people that will want to listen to that, and that's what you've got to focus on. So choose a topic, something that is of your interest. Always create the podcast for yourself first. When I say for yourself, do something you love, man. Something you really love for your first one. So when I said I did my comeback after my stroke, I did something called the soundtrack of my life, and I did say I'm very proud of it. It was nominated for a radio award. The soundtrack of my life was taking, because I've been in radio all my life as well, but also as a human being, music for me, it just was everywhere. So what I would do is I would take different aspects of my persona. For example, there was about one called Forever Young, and how there's aspects of myself that were literally great memories, fond memories. My fondest memory was, one of my fondest memories was me as a 4-year-old, right? And we had a fruit shop. So my mom ran the fruit shop. My dad still is. He's still a sales representative, so a guy that goes out and sells juices to companies or to shops and stuff like that. So he's a sales rep, right? But back then, like I say, in the 1980s, during lunchtime, it was very quiet, and my mom would take me, she would take me here in her arms and her legs, and she'd tell me a noon bedtime story. And if you listen to the podcast, you're probably going to hear this verbatim as well. And for me, it was so great. She wouldn't tell me stories about Cinderella and all that type of stuff. She didn't know about it, nothing like that. She'd tell me stories about Greek mythology. And she knew it off by heart. She would look at me, and I would look at her into her eyes, and I would be enthralled by this moment that we would constantly have every day that made me so much closer, soul to soul, with my mother. And there was music around that time. I grew up in the 80s, the B-52s. We had the Pet Shop Boys. We had Michael Jackson. Man, great things, man. That sparked interest for me about how to be forever young. That feeling that I had with my mother and connection with life and moments in life, right? And how I would then put that in the podcast, I bring that into a narrative for people who are not interested in my story, but are interested about how the story connects to their lives, right? And whether they feel old today, they feel tired today, and they forget how to feel passionate, or where they did feel passion, and that was a once upon a time with happily ever after in their lives. I can get in touch, I can get personal, and I get emotive. And the soundtrack of my life, I'm very proud of. After that, I did Coffee with Convicts, I did the 15-year journal, I did my international celebrity guests, I'm doing Dark Africa, randomradio.com. I did the comic book series. You carry on, you get this, you get various ideas, right? Make sure that all of that kind of sparks some kind of, like firework in you, Katy Perry, to follow along with the guidelines now and think about that as we go along. Second, pick a co-host, and that's optional, right? Remember, there are different types of podcasts. There's a narrative, like I just explained to you, so one person that tells a bit of a story. There's radio documentaries, right, which have been around forever, but now are classed under podcasts. We have, obviously, the conversation, where there are various people that are constant hosts that talk about something, right? We do have the host with a guest, and pretty much this is how we will have maybe, like, let's say, dramas. We might have actually fictional stuff. It doesn't really matter, right? But you would need to know why you are putting somebody else in your podcast space, right? They have to serve a purpose. They have to be, they have to contribute. Please, you got to talk. You have to have synergy between the two of you as well, or the three of you as well. In other words, you have to have an understanding. So let's say you're starting the podcast. I would, like I have before, when I did the WTF is going on with the Gen Zers, I made sure that I chatted to who I wanted as co-host Gen Z, who I wanted as Gen Z co-host. Contributors, no. Co-hosts, yes, and I got the perfect team. I loved them, and they loved me, and we loved the entire process. It was great. That's the whole thing. You got to have synergy. You got to have a bond. You got to have some kind of like very kind of platonic romance. It's great. Something to broadcast some great valued material at the end of the day, right? Please note that if you are going to dedicate yourself to a never-ending podcast, right, which is a dangerous thing, right? 10 to 1, you will see many different, many varied episodes of yours being quite flat and boring. So, you're coming on and you're doing a psychology podcast, right? You will run out of guests, okay? When I say enough guests to make this interesting, or more interesting enough than what a radio personality can do in 3 minutes chatting to a psychologist just once off, right? As opposed to you sitting there and trying to burn it out, right? If you are going to take that, you can obviously see I'm against that, right? And you're gonna pick a co-host, make sure that they are as dedicated as you. The most common trend this is going to be a Chris Jordan trend, right? That I can say for podcasting is that they don't last. The majority of podcasts vanish, disappear, poof. They're like in there. It looks like they're in their peak and they're never heard of again, right? People get lazy, and you're going to see why now in a moment, right? First, we're going to choose a name. So you heard some of my names. Obviously, they must be catchy, something cool, something that really gives you a bit of an umbrella to be able to play around in. So again, within this particular context with the 14er cast, there was enough for them to move around the name itself. So maybe like a 14-kilometer or 14-mile hike across, let's say, or a 14-mile mountain or high mountain or whatever it is. They would play around with that type of thing as well. I wouldn't make it too cliche or like this, too often, right? Okay. So don't make that like a bit of a toy that you play with the whole time. Use that for color in and out. But, okay, let's go to some of the concepts of the length, right? So with the length, you will find a number of experts claim that certain lengths are perfect for podcasts, but the problem is that is just plain old. But the problem with that is that it is just plain old, and it says it in the slides. I can say it's BS, right? Okay. So you don't need 28 minutes, okay, to do a podcast, because if that's the average time, or under an hour, because people can't pay attention that for that long. If you don't have anything to say for 28 minutes, do not aim for 28 minutes just because you know that it is, let's say, like I say, an accepted average. if you can only find, you'll see that most podcasts will change or vary in length, So maybe one will be 17 minutes, the other one will be 14 minutes, the other one will be 22 minutes, whatever it may be, right? Like you will pre-produce this podcast, right? So you will pre-produce it. That's very important, right? And then you will like I record for like an hour and a half per podcast, and then I will completely edit that down to perhaps maybe 24, again maybe 27, depending on what it is that was relevant in that. If I find that there's a lot of stuff relevant, I would split that up into like a part 1, part 2, part 3, that I will release, let's say, weekly or bi-weekly or whatever it may be, right? But please, the length really, like, you must use your discretion as well. Again, take the average of 15 to 17 minutes for the current moment in this trend and move forward, right? With the style, interview shows are popular, but that doesn't mean that you have to do one, okay? It is a bit of a cop-out. Yes, we got another interview. Yes, we got another podcast. Yes, another person is chatting to this person. There's so much of it, right? And if you go to the NPR app and you go to many podcasting apps, you are going to see this endless amount of endless conversations with endless amounts of people that, if you might get also frustrated at the end of the day of trying new podcasts within, let's say, a space that is very generic, which is the interview podcast, for example. It doesn't really grab a lot of attention in the sense that unless you're attached to a CNN, a BMH, or like SABC or whatever it is, and you're not a big name, like it's very difficult for someone to just commit to that and give you the chance, and it's just going to be this plain old interview, because who are you and who are you to them, right? Okay. All right. So again, we've spoken about the style. I've given you a number of different ideas there. The episode format, right? So again, this is just a guideline. It's just an example, right? We could open up with a bit of a teaser, so a little bit of a short little opener as to what you can expect in the episode, maybe even a snippet of what happens in the episode. Have obviously, let's say, there must be a consistent intro, like let's say like a bit of a jingle, or maybe it's you doing a bit of an introductory monologue piece for about 15 to 20 seconds or so. Then you get into obviously the podcast itself. Okay, right. All right, we have the intro music, then the welcome. You do welcome your listener. You do tell them, so in this case, I'm going to say listener consumer, right? Just because, again, of the way that we process and we obviously like to enjoy podcasts, right? Okay, we want to welcome them. Yes, this is what's happening. Tell them why today is super special, what this episode is about, but try and be original and captivating and hook them with that. Don't just like do it as a bit of like a checklist, and kind of black and white thing. There might be, if you're lucky enough to have it monetized. I'm saying the podcast can be monetized. You might put in an ad spot. So this was much better. I'm saying today we now, again, find podcasts that have produced adverts that are in the middle or like you say, just after the welcome. Like I say, what am I saying? Just after the welcome note, we put the sponsor's advert, which is okay, not bad because we get it over with. We go through the podcast, play it maybe again in the middle and end, and that's it. But the thing is that the better way to actually use advertising in podcasts is to do it organically without actually playing a produced ad. So, today I want to just thank BMH Radio, who's made of BMH, a Boston Media House, that's made this podcast possible. I met a couple of the Boston Media House students. I was one of the guests at their graduation just the other day. And I must say, I'm not going to, they are special kids. They're different kids because they're media kids. And I found the certain type of energy, which is so weird because I went to a more quote-unquote formal, I say formalized student experience and varsity experience. And this is really cool. I love Boston Media House. Thank you so much. They even got this great new course where you can just have a glimpse into what you possibly could want to be as a broadcaster in their radio short course. They also have a video short course. Make sure you jump on to their website and go and register. It's bostonmediahouse.co.za. Thanks so much, Boston. See, so now I'm now doing this organic advert that the listener doesn't know how long. They don't know how long I'm going to be carrying on about this, so they can't even forward past it. So in other words, the sponsor is guaranteed like ad space, like guaranteed. Instead of like in radio, we could just switch it off. In TV, we go to another channel, whatever it may be. Newspapers, you know what I'm saying, unless it's a record, you know, where it's just new adverts everywhere, like we'll just not look at it, whatever it is, right? Just a little note on ad spots in your podcast. Okay, you do your interview, you do your piece, whatever it is, you do the content. So the call to action is, you must be careful with this because, right? So don't use the same call to action like you do on radio. Oh, give us a call right now, because then that is what's streaming radio, so it becomes online radio. You want to interact with your audience. You can do this in various ways. Like you can preempt the podcast on social media and get people's opinions. Maybe contact them, DM them, and make sure maybe you want to have one of them as a call on your podcast. Then that really works quite nicely, right? We have had some podcasts. I was listening to this. One podcast, it's about the universe. I love the universe and I love astronomy and all that type of stuff and whatever it is, and all the science that goes between there. And they would take three to four, but very, 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 very cool callers, which you could hear were, I say, premeditated. In other words, they were found before to be interested within the topic that was going to be discussed with the guest or whatever it is, and they had these really great questions to put on. So I'm saying, if you want a call to action, you can also just review us, tell us what you thought about the episode. We'll keep the conversation going on social media, yada, 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 right? Okay, outro music, get creative with that particular part as well. Different segments make it easier to share small clips on social media too. Like I just said there, in terms of either maybe so I said preempted call to actions, post-empted, post-meditated calls to action, and then we can also have the concept of teasers. We can have behind the scenes. We can have added value, whatever it may be on social media, right? Okay. So this you need to do is go create some cover art, okay? Something very cool. Actually prepare a photo shoot. Then go make sure that you use, even on your phone, man, there's so many great photo editing apps. I've done one on my phone. I don't go call up someone that's professional. I am professional. But the point is that, like, I just had to have an eye for, like, clear, concise design. Don't use the same like generic fonts. Do something quite interesting. Make sure that you are using, like, let's say, a photo app that allows you to work with different layers as well to create a really cool little banner cover art, square, something for Instagram, something for Twitter, something for, like, as a banner as well. So if you want it across your Facebook business page, LinkedIn, doesn't matter. That you have this ability to play around with that and create cover art for your podcast series. Okay, let's move on, right? So get a professional intro. Again, this is to be produced as well, as I say. So if you want, let's say, a jingleized, right? So something that is, it's a wet ID, call it a wet ID. So it has a lot of effects, or it's got this, or it's got like a little bit of an intro, not just, hi, this is whatever it is, the BMH Radio podcast, right? Then make sure that you have either a professional work with you, or make sure that you are now, currently, as we're talking right now, you're downloading. So you can immediately download Audacity. Audacity is free. It has all the functionality that you need to edit sound, watch a couple of YouTube videos. It's super easy to use. Once you get the hang of it, it's totally enough for a beginner's podcast, even a beginner to an intermediate podcast. And then you can move to, let's say, Adobe Audition, or you can move to like any of the more advanced, like sound editing tools. All right, cool. But put the effort in with the intro and the intro music. Mention there, if you're going to be using background music, don't use someone's song, please. Like, you will get into trouble. You must pay royalties. Like, do not use some artist's song. You can use up to, I think, 4 to 7 seconds of a snippet of it should you want to, and if it's totally necessary. But if you're going to monetize off that as well, like, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Anyway, a lot of the platforms will not allow you to upload and publicize that particular clip, because they've got algorithms that do check like whether music has been identified, and obviously you've gone across the copyright and stuff like that. There's a lot of obviously free available music that you can go download from pretty much an endless amount of sites, okay? All right, cool. With a microphone. So the microphone is, it's important, okay? If you don't have the cash, that's cool. Take your phone, please. Like, take your phone, make sure that you do a couple of practices with mic techniques as well, because if you're too close to the phone, you could get this like pop that you do not want. It might distort where you don't want. Make sure, so make sure that you know how to use recording on, let's say, a cell phone itself, which I promise you, I won't even say it now because it's over with, right? When I did the soundtrack of my life, I did it on my phone, right? You'd think I'd have a professional equipment at home. I didn't at that point. I didn't care to. I didn't need to, because I knew how to use the phone. Again, it was a high quality. I know how to work with it. I know exactly what apps to use, not just the voice recorder. Know how to obviously use like sound editing software, but I also know how to deliver as well, and make sure that little device is an actual microphone for yourself, right? You don't need the little microphone. You don't need the set here that's connected, unless you're moving completely into the professional space where, let's say, it's corporate podcasting, or it is business podcasting, or I'm saying to you, you've got this studio where you're going to do this, whatever it may be, right? The phone can actually work just perfectly. Not can actually, it does work just fine. I'm saying, nominated for a radio award. Recorded it where? On my cell phone, right? So, if you want to spend some money on a mic, please, I beg of you. So I've done this as a test. I went and I said first, I went to the cash converters, for example. It doesn't matter if I'm advertising them. I'm just using them as context. And I said, cool, listen, yeah, you show me some of your mics, but I want your cheap mics, right? Your cheap, capable mics. So he was like, cool, here's one here for like $200. I was like, great, it looks great. It's even got like a little, like I said, it's got a pop filter on there. It looks so fancy and nice, and you can connect it to your phone, and you connect it to your PC, whatever it is. I did test that, and it sounded terrible. It was blunt, it was bad, and it was horrible, right? Then I sought the advice of an expert, in other words, someone that does deal with apparatus, and they said to me, on the average, a good mic to buy for podcasting costs around 1,200 Rand, right? So if you are going to do this for the long run, and you dedicate it, go buy yourself a really good mic. It'll last a really long time. You'll get the guarantee. You'll get some good specials. I'm saying if you're buying from online stores as well, instead of the brick and mortar stores, and buy yourself the mic. Make sure you have the software. All you need is a laptop as well. If you're going to have guests, you have to have another mic as well that you have to put and invest in, and move forward with that. But close your eyes, swipe the credit card, go for it. It is worth it. I do have that right now, and I see the value in it as well. Not that I didn't say it before. I was like, cool, I'm going to do this the right way, and it definitely has made things a lot better for me as well. Okay. All right. Podcast guests. So when you are looking for podcast guests, I'm going to do the rule of thumb, which is please interview someone that is of use. In other words, like I say, there's an example, particularly because there is one podcast of a friend of mine. I don't mind shaming. It's okay, right? Because the truth of the matter is that this is it's a psychology one, right? Whatever it is, but it's about. Oh, you can hear that I don't like this podcast. Anyway, the content of it. It's more about hypnotics and about how to, deal with like your subconscious and whatever it may be. And it's a little bit up in the sky for me, but that's the content that I don't enjoy. Point is, right, like he started a podcast, and I'm so happy for him. Great to go out there. Started to run very, very thin on relevant guests for that specific topic, right, or that specific umbrella. And the thing is that I listened to enough podcasts to hear that he was just as bored as they were just as bored as I was just as bored. So please only invite a guest if they are going to be really cool, really really entertaining, informative, educative, whatever it is, that's word, educative, right? And bring them on. And remember to go and follow our previous unit to prepare for interviews. Okay, cool. Remember, just to make it super conversational, this podcasting space is about you sitting back and having this long conversation, going back to the editing board and making sure that it is all clean, right? I've actually heard a particular podcast that I was very... I love that they did this because it proves my point and it proves I'm saying the people that know and will train on podcasts or they develop podcasts, it proves their point too. They actually disclaimed and said this podcast was not edited. So you will hear a lot of the and the like the fumbles or whatever it is, because what they did was with the guest, and this was again, it was disclaimed in the beginning of the episode. They wanted the raw reaction of the guest to what people had said or had been saying and professionals in the same industry had said or are saying currently, down the line, say to this person, right? And so all of those fluffs and everything were left in, right? But because podcasting is premeditated, it is not tolerated for you to have fumbling and ums and this and that, whatever it is, you will edit. Okay, and again, just passed on that. That's the next, actually, there it is right there. So this is, you can use GarageBand, like I said, you can use Audacity as well. So I'm just going to go show you like a couple of notes in GarageBand here. For example, one, I said the Adobe Audition, Audacity as well. They both work for Mac or for PC as well. But you can just go do a little bit more research, please, on these. Please go watch the YouTube videos. Like there's obviously an endless amount, and they are very helpful for you to just get around the actual software itself. But one, you want to create a template. When I want to, you're going to say, oh, what do I want to create a template for? Like it's every podcast I'm going to be putting in like audio that I'm going to let's say I'm going to pre-edit, and then I'll have a multi-track session, right? Okay, where I will then go and I'll put in all my different tracks and my intros and my whatever it is, my jingles or my music jingles in the beginning or whatever it may be, or my ads. But it's not the template is about the settings, right? So that's what you're creating the template actually for, right? Okay, but so just in terms of file names and folders, make sure that you're dating the folders and you're naming them correctly. You're dating actually the clips, and you are naming them. You have a naming convention for them. So, for example, 2023. Underscore 09 underscore Chris introduction podcast episode number one, right? So you would have like I say, okay, so you're naming, so you would have a naming convention, right, for the way that you are saving your files as well. And again, just to create this particular session that you will be working with in, right, you would want to set the EQ. I'm just going to quickly go on the next slide. So there are different options for your EQ, right, that you can use there. And here are some of the settings. So you can choose any one of them as well. I'm just going to give an example of the first and the last one there. So at 100 hertz, you can use the 24 decibels. And it doesn't matter because this is the way that we roll in, roll out with obviously the quality of that particular production that we're busy doing, the production, that element that we're doing, or you can go all the way up to 5,400 hertz, go up to 2.5 decibels, and then just change your settings and leave them like that, right? So we want to go for the EQ, and we want to maybe even apply a compressor in the beginning. Don't go too complicated. I normally use dynamic processing for mine. Dynamic banding. I'm sorry. There we go. Dynamic banding for mine. Sometimes use a multi-band processor as well. It gives you a nice broadcast option, and you can find that on varied editing software as well. It's kind of the same. But those are the things that you want to be creating the template with. So for example, you want to include, and like let's say you got the little teaser, so you're going to leave a space there, that's going to change, but then you'll have the intro here, you'll have obviously the ad in there, and maybe the outro then as well. For example, the template will make things easier for you, plus also you're going to have all the settings there. Cool, we're nearly done, right? Now it's your job to go out there and share it with the world, right? So have the bravery to put content out there that can be judged. Okay, so please don't sell dreams. Okay, unless this is a dream experience. Sell what is there. So if it's a great podcast and it's very interesting, it's enlightening, it's going to be a tearjerker, it's going to be that, whatever it may be, go launch it, go put it up on Mixcloud, go put it up on Iono, put it on Spotify, put it on Apple, create the accounts, put in the effort with your banners, with the name, with the description, everything and all, and then get ready to then have a bit of feedback. Right. I'm going to leave it at that. Good luck, and go let the world hear your voice.